So by now, I'm hoping that you've heard about the brand new PodCourse subscription that Speech Therapy PD has rolled out. For $79 a month, you get over 175 hours of ASHA continuing education with 19 new episodes a month. That's fantastic. Well, they want to make sure that you also know we have a brand new coupon code. So the coupon code is F as in first, B as in bite, followed by the number 20, FB20. And that brand new coupon code will give you $20 off the PodCourse subscription. So you get 175 hours of continuing ed plus an average of 19 new hours a month, all for $59 a year. And we cover everything from early intervention to schools to adults to ethics. So be sure to type in F as in first, B as in bite, and then the number's 20. Enjoy your coupon, or as my kin folks say, enjoy that coupon. Hi, folks, and welcome to First Bite, Fed, Fun, and Functional, a speech therapy podcast sponsored by SpeechTherapyPD.com. I am your host on this nerd venture, Michelle Dawson, MS, CCC, SLP, CLC, the All Things Peds SLP. I am a colleague in the trenches of home health early intervention right there with you. I run my own private practice, Heartwood Speech Therapy, here in Coletown, South Carolina. And I guest lecture nationwide on best practices for early intervention for the medically complex and fragile child. First Bite's mission is short and sweet, to bring light, hope, knowledge, and joy to the pediatric clinician, parent, or advocate.
By way of a nerdy conversation, so there's plenty of laughter too.
In this podcast, we cover everything from AAC to breastfeeding,
ethics on how to run a private practice,
pediatric dysphagia to clinical supervision,
and all other topics in the world of pediatric speech pathology. Our goal is to bring evidence-based practice straight to you by interviewing subject matter experts.
To break down the communication barriers so that we can access the knowledge of their fields.
Or, as a close friend says, to build the bridge.
By bringing other professionals and experts in our field together, we hope to spark advocacy, joy, and passion for continuing to grow and advance care for our little ones.
Every fourth episode, I join in. I'm Erin Forward, MSP, CCC, SLP, the Yankee by way of Rochester, New York transplant who actually inspired this journey. I bring a different perspective, that of a newish clinician with experience in early intervention, pediatric acute care, and nonprofit pediatric outpatient settings.
So sit back, relax, and watch out for all our squirrels and enjoy this geeky gig brought to you by SpeechTherapyPD.com. Y'all, I am so excited and humbled to have our guest today because today we get to share an hour with the one and only Haley Jones, CAE, former volunteer operations manager with ASHA. And y'all, she is also a cat person, and I will openly admit I live vicariously through her social media feed because as much as I love cats, that's how allergic my husband is, and I do love him a wee bit more. Okay, all right, so this is the part where I get to share the backstory. Y'all, I first met Haley several years ago when I was contemplating applying for the ASHA Leadership Development Program. However, I was gripped by fears of inadequacies. I didn't attend a top 10 college or university. I went to good schools, but it took me a while to get there because I'm the oldest of 5. Money has always been budgeted. And y'all, I really enjoyed my high school experience, so my grades were a little bit squishy, iffy, but community college was where I started. There it was. And I'm proud to say that because like millions of us out there, it was the perfect choice for me and my family. But I was fearful to apply to this major program because I felt and sort of still do feel like I don't belong at the table with those who come from a lot. So I called ASHA and I was introduced to Haley, and she made me feel comfortable and confident through a series of 15-minute phone conversations that I honest to goodness don't even remember. Don't know if you remember that we had those, but we did. And dear friend, it literally changed my life. That program taught me so much and shaped me to seek out stakeholders in all aspects of my professional and personal walk. And it taught me the importance of seeking out diversity and cultural competency training, because I only know the culture that I grew up in. And there is so much more beauty in the world in addition to the hills of my youth. But I had to be brave and I had to seek it out. And let me phrase this slightly different. When you have a little one who has a new disorder or a diagnosis that you've never heard of, before you write your treatment plan, don't you seek out details on the etiology? That way you can develop that competent plan of care? Exactly. So when we work with a family from a different culture, shouldn't we seek out information on how to collaborate with them to the best of our ability? What about when you have a new colleague from a different culture and they ask off for a holiday that you've never heard about? Wouldn't it be amazing to learn about that culture and send warm wishes their way? All right, so this is a super long intro, but it's important to understand that we need to have these conversations, this education, this collaboration, and it must come from leadership, because a strong leader will guide their allied health team with grace, with kindness, with passion, and with cultural competency. And Haley is that leader, and she is here to teach us how to lead. So, Haley, hello, sweet friend. How is the new
Hello, my
kid?
friend. He's
Hi.
wonderful. His full name is Teddy Graham Jones, but all the men in my family go by middle names, so he goes by Graham.
I love that.
He'll actually be a year old in March. I adopted him in July, about a month and some change after my 12-year-old tuxedo Brody passed. So if it hadn't been for quarantine, I don't know if I would have gotten another one so quickly. But he is. I say to him all the time, he's the perfect fit. And he's impossibly cute. And everyone, I feel a sense of pride when we go to the vet and they look at him and they're like, "Oh my God, you are so adorable." And I'm like, "Thanks." I had nothing to do with it, but for whatever reason, I feel a sense of pride with it.
Oh my God, I love it. When you were okay. So, folks, when Christmas happened and the Christmas tree was up, and I was like devouring the tree. I was like, yes. I mean, my favorite Christmas memory with Chewbacca is one day it was. I mean, it's the South, right? Like we don't get snow. It was like humid and muggy and pouring rain out. And Chewie looked at the front door and was like, nope. He looked at the side door. He's like, nope. He looked at me, looked at the Christmas tree, looked at me. And I swear on my life, that dog smiled at me. And then he took a whiz all over our fake Christmas tree. And Bear and Goose comes running in. He goes, "Oh no, baby Jesus!" Because baby Jesus was underneath. And I was like, "Oh God, yes." Cultural competency 101. Chewbacca should not pee on the tree of baby Jesus. There we go. That's a great intro. We are rocking this today.
Mischievous pets and diversity.
Yeah. Oh my stars. Okay, well, y'all, seriously, when I first met Haley, I was so nervous to apply for that program. And so I called Asha. I literally have them on speed dial. And, well, not speed dial, but like they're saved to my phone. And so I called him up and was like, "I'm looking in this program and I don't know if I can commit a year." I mean, the babies were little, right? Like I don't even think Bear was
I know,
2
what
yet.
year was that?
That was 2017. So
Oh yeah, okay.
yeah, Bear was 2. Who in their right mind thinks that they can do a year-long program with a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old? I mean, that's absurd, but I did. And so but I called you and I was so afraid to even apply. And you were just so calm and you talked about the program with such confidence that it would make me better, that it would propel our future forward. That it was like, I need this. And it was amazing. And I made lifelong friends through it too. So that was awesome. But you've done this for multiple associations. So can you talk to us about like, how did you get into like associations and the work that you do?
Well, so as far as associations, I feel like most of us who work in associations didn't graduate from college with that intent. I needed a job and I couldn't find one right away. And I was a college athlete. And so my backup was working the basketball camp circuit in DC until I found, and I was interviewing while that was going on, until I could find a job, and I just wasn't finding the right fit. And it was so long ago, I don't want to age myself, but it was a long time ago, and someone told me to contact a woman who had her own temp agency. And I did, and she had a position at an association in Old Town Alexandria. So I did attempt to hire position there for, I think the intent was just for a few weeks to see how it went. After about 3 or 4 days, they were like, we want her to stay on board full time. And I bounced around to associations after that. Where ASHA was the longest I was at. I was there for almost 8 years. But I had started in, well, so I'll say this in ASHA terms. My first job was something similar to the ASHA Action Center. And then I got into membership, retention, and recruitment, and then business development, and back to member recruitment. And then when I came to ASHA, it was volunteer operations. And I remember reading the job description, and I didn't know about the leadership development program. I didn't find out about that until I started, actually. But the job itself, I was like, this is perfect. And it was obviously a very great place to work. And I was really excited to go. And I remember my first day, I came home, I was like, it's like Disney World there. It was amazing.
That's awesome.
But,
I love Disney World, by the way.
it was just, everyone was so kind and so welcoming. And the culture at ASHA is just incredible. I remember when I started, the reiteration of the leadership development program was one cohort was halfway through. There was healthcare in schools at the time that we call now, like internally, we call LDP 1. I think we're 1 and 2, I should say, actually. Or what? No, it was like LDP 1 healthcare, LDP 1 schools. I ended up in my 7+ years, I think I did like 16 groups or something. And I think now they're probably on like 19 or 20, probably 20 by now. So it's been, I don't know, I've been gone for 2 years. It feels like it's been longer, but it really, that program kind of, being able to work with that program completely changed what I wanted to do with my career, and really gave me this huge interest in leadership development, all things leadership development. I will read or watch anything I can for it. So when I left there, I'm at the American Staffing Association. We had which is ironic because this all started from a woman who works at a temp agency, which we would call staffing firms.
That's awesome.
But very full circle. But I actually fell into doing our diversity and inclusion initiatives just because of retirement of staff, COVID changing my job, because I did a lot of working with different state networks or groups of people to do in-person events. Obviously, come March, we couldn't do that anymore. So those got put on pause. Everything was put on pause. And when everything happened this summer with Ahmaud Arbery and George Floyd, and then finding out about Breonna Taylor, and we had members calling asking, what are we doing about this? Because I managed 10 different councils. I did at the time. Have more now, but I managed 10 different councils and so a lot of my members, especially Black members, were calling like, what's going on? Like, we have our D&I group is called the IDEA group. It stands for Inclusion, Diversity, Inclusion, Diversity, and Equity Advocacy Group. And we did a lot. They've been in existence for about 7 years, but a lot of what they were doing was more on the kind of trying to recruit people or talking about supplier diversity, but not outward facing, talking about racial injustice. And this was the time for them to put their foot down and say and do something. So the person who originally managed them had retired, and there was an interim person, but she was bogged down with stuff because this technically was not her workload. She inherited it until a replacement came along, and we were when we brought. We're in my team is member engagement, so we're kind of all over the place with programming, and we you hear a lot. Probably we hear the most from members based on the work that we do and the amount of virtual networking that we have, and um, this woman said, I know this is important, but I don't have the bandwidth and I don't know who does. And we're on Zoom, and I slowly raised my hand into my little Zoom box, and she's like, you want to do this? And I just kept saying, someone's got to, it's really important. And I have the bandwidth because most of my job was put on pause. I was kind of inserting myself in other ways to, help with some of the virtual engagement that we were doing, since that's all we could do. But yeah, that's kind of how my fall into DNI. And now, we had a really good, it's weird to say because it came up from a bad event, a few bad events. But we had a strong showing with programming for it. And I'm literally just had a call 2 days ago to go over stuff for 2021 that we're going to do. And it's a lot, but it's exciting, and it needs to happen. And so I'm excited for it.
So I have this entire conversation about diversity, inclusion, and cultural competency. In my shoes, a dear friend, a dear mentor told me that I have the power as a white female with a voice to affect change. And I felt, I don't know how to describe how I felt. And I was like, but I'm just one person. And she mentioned, and she's mentored and continues to, and she told me yesterday, and she goes, yes, but you have the ability to open people's eyes to daily little occurrences that they wouldn't otherwise see, such as a coworker mentioning in passing something that's going on that should be going to the chair of my department. I mean, it shouldn't be said in passing to me. It should be said to our chair. And there's racial divide there, and that's why it was said to me, right? And little occurrences like that. When I had therapy with a patient, and I brought a beautiful student with me, and she's kind and she's wonderful, and she's Black. And the parent was not white, and she was not Black, and she refused to engage with the student. And I had to redirect continuously in the therapy session to stand up for my student. And we got in the car, and I was like, I am so sorry. I didn't anticipate the parent. I no longer work with this family, but I didn't anticipate the family to behave like that. And the student turned to me and she goes, honestly, I'm so used to it. It didn't even faze me.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted, my stomach hurt and my heart broke, and this is not okay. And this is the time, and we have the opportunity to have these conversations so that we can do better. So here we are. And thank you for letting me sweet talk you into having these conversations. Because honestly, it's fearful for, I worry about saying the wrong thing. I mean, I grew up in Redneckville, right? And I don't have the same beliefs and ideology as some of my family. And some of my family and I are currently not talking. because I think the world is a beautiful place and love is everywhere and Black Lives Matter. And saying that does not belittle or take away from anybody else. And some folks can't see that difference.
Yeah.
And that's hard. So before I start crying about that, because I mean, I love my family. I just, things are different. This is okay. Okay. So if folks want to get started on this, I worry about one, using the wrong terms. And that's just, I mean, I don't know if what I'm supposed to say. Even when I go to describe an individual, I worry about causing offense. But that, and also I'm an empath and have like anxiety. So there's also that, like, full disclosure. But when we go to look at setting up a diversity and inclusion team, or we're considering this, what are our top factors? And I know this particular industry is 90 some percent white females. So how do we go about doing this effectively and without causing offense?
Well, so that's something that actually we try to. I'm actually working on programming for this for our members as well, but so I'll explain how we went about this internally, because we actually set up an internal group. We felt that there was a need for one, and this honestly opened the door. Everything that was going on opened the door to have some pretty frank conversations with our senior management. I had several conversations with my CEO and COO about it, because I don't know, it was weird this year. It's like, oh, we can actually talk about this now, honestly, without being punished for it. Not to say that we would have been, but there's just that fear. But one thing that we talk about a lot is, for one, just educating yourselves. I'm by no means am I an expert. I'm still learning a lot, especially where, in staffing. I joke that the staffing industry is a lot like the association industry, where there's literally an association for everything, and there's literally a staffing firm for any job you can think of. But that being said, they also staff all different kinds of people. So to just keep in mind that, like, diversity is not just about race; it's about physical abilities. It could, sexual orientation or preference or whatever it is. Like, one thing that I'm working on now is a lot and I'm learning a lot. We have a partnership with ODEP, which is the Office of Disability Employment Policy, and there are so many branches of ODEP and different things that people just don't think about.
I didn't know that was an entity.
Yes, it is, and I admittedly, I don't think I knew that before 2020, and just the different they have all these different organizations within themselves to help people with disabilities, or even like learning deficiencies or whatever it is. Like, Goodwill's another one too who does that, which I did not know, because I think we mostly all know Goodwill for dropping off like items to donate. But
I'm sorry, I'm laughing because we cleaned out my attic for the first time since we moved into our house. And when I pulled up to the Goodwill, the lady looked at me like I was crazy because my SUV was so full, I barely fit in it to drive over there. And she was like, are you moving? And I was like, well, no, we moved 3 times in like 9 months, and then we had babies. And so we finally got around to this. Sorry. Oh, yeah.
awesome.
It was so much crap. Oh my God. I'm a clean hoarder, I promise. Okay, continue.
Okay, so with our internal group, really what ended up happening was there was a group of us that wrote a letter saying, these are things that we think need to be addressed, and we'd like to create a diversity team of staff members to do this. What ended up happening was that they just kind of garnered interest for, if you're interested, contact so-and-so. And so we're small compared to what I'm used to at Ash. Ash is like 300 people. We have 40. So to me, it's a small staff. I think it's technically a medium sized, but I think, gosh, of the 40 of us, maybe it's like 42 of us, almost 20 were interested, which is, as nice
Wow.
to have as, and they didn't want to turn people away. So we actually created different task forces. But one thing that, in talking that we realized we were getting ahead of ourselves, and it's like figuring out why this team actually exists and what problems we want to address before figuring out how we're actually going to address them. Everyone was coming up originally with like from the gate with ideas on how to address what was going on and like we can do this, that, and the other, but not talking about, well, what's the problem we need to fix first. And so coming up with a problem statement it was interesting because it's harder than it seems. All this, you see examples of things that are going on, or but to actually sit down and not consolidate it, but to really like focus on what the effort needs to be for the greater good of everyone, it was actually a little bit more difficult than I thought it was going to be. We met regularly. It took a very long time, and that's the other thing is that patience is key because it was frustrating to take as long as we were taking, but at the same time, you don't want to rush anything. You want to make sure that you're doing it correctly, and that was even with the outward facing programming that I was putting together for our members. It was trying to get them making sure that we were doing it right. So when we took over, it was July, but we didn't put out our first program until October. And that's just because of the amount of work that went on behind the scenes to make sure that it was good, to get speakers, the right speakers, and make sure that it was just done correctly.
That right there, I have found might be the most important bit of advice for all things. Y'all, we rush. As a society, we rush. We rush to judgment. We rush to action. We rush with our responses. Literally take that extra breath.
Yeah, definitely.
And then work through this because we have to do this right. And yeah. No, there's so much I want to say that I don't know how to say it the correct way. So I'm just going to be quiet.
Well, and let me say with that too, it's okay to make a mistake if you say the wrong thing. I have a friend who felt like, well, she was saying the wrong thing and she kept getting corrected, and we weren't correcting her in an aggressive or abrasive way. It was just, I think she was frustrated because she was getting corrected because she didn't understand why what she was saying was wrong. And then it went immediately from questioning why she was wrong to just saying, well, everything I say is wrong, so I'm just not going to say anything at all. And that's not okay either. People have to go into this, especially with we had a internal team meeting the other day, and we have some tough conversations about stuff, and it's okay to you have to be mentally and emotionally prepared to have a tough conversation, but you have to go in with a listening mind, and that was what I felt like she was missing. And I'll say when we revisited that conversation a few months later, we changed our approach a little bit, but so did she, and she received the information, and so I think it's just important for people to know that there's a speaker named Jessica Pettit who has this really great flow chart about having tough conversations, and it talks about listening with an open mind, understanding that you're probably going to make a mistake, but that it's okay and you can correct it, and that's how we learn. But I highly recommend checking her out. I know that she's got a few reels to. She's a professional D&I speaker. She's been speaking for about 25 years, I believe. But she is, she's funny. She's like really relatable in the way that she she says her information, but she's got this awesome flow chart that I actually keep next to, or like keep saved on my desktop for easy access, because it's helpful. It's really helpful for difficult conversations like that.
Can you email that to me, pretty please?
Yeah, of course.
I would love that. And that's hard. I have a friend that will transition from a she to a them. And I always say, yes, ma'am. Because, I mean, if I didn't, my butt was going to get whooped when I was
Right.
a kid. So, like, let me be perfectly clear. Like, that was literally got beat into me. I understand that you respect your elders and you offer respect. But when they transitioned, I didn't know how to still maintain that sense of respect with the new pronoun. And also, because I knew them previously, I still slip. But my sweet
Mm-hmm.
friend Mern always corrects me with kindness. So if I say, well, and then she's doing good, like everything's great, and she's like, they are doing great, and I'm like, oh, I'm so sorry. But it's
hard.
it's hard. It's hard, but and bless the sweet boys. They, they're learning pronouns and like learning parts of speech in school. And that's a whole new take on curriculum that our teachers are going to have to learn to embrace and start working with. And so we've kind of broached it from uh, how to be polite, and if the individual changes, like if you say yes sir and they say no, it's yes ma'am, or vice versa, they know who they are and you be respectful of their choice.
Mm-hmm.
And and I have found that when we try as a family, it's been very well received. And so if one child does one and the other child does another, and I'm thinking of our dog groomer, Mr. Ray's like, it's all right, Shug. Also, I need to call Mr. Ray because dog needs to get done. And Mr. Ray gives her dyes her paws pink.
Oh my gosh.
It's great. Yeah, my husband does not like that, but I mean, I told him the dog can have pink paws or mommy can have purple hair. Take a pic. Somebody's getting done.
No,
okay.
it's interesting that you say that, though. My sister has a friend who recently started to change their pronouns from he, him to they, them, and privately to her and a few people, and then publicly at the beginning of literally 3 weeks ago. And I have known them for however long she has. So like about, I don't even know now, 6, 7 years. And it's very hard. I don't see them regularly. She does, talks to them regularly, but sometimes when she and I are talking and she says he, and I say, oh, I thought it was they, because the first thing that I asked when she told me was, are the pronouns changing? And she's like, oh, I didn't think to ask. And she asked, and they're really appreciative of it. But it also corrects anyone with really like grace and patience, which I think is so big to do, because I'm sure they're probably used to it, but also it can be frustrating because it is a big change for everyone. And we're going to get it wrong. But again, it's like, it's okay if you're trying to learn and correct yourself.
Okay. So years ago, our state association board was all middle-aged white ladies.
Mm-hmm.
And basically from similar school setting. And I had a problem with that. And as well as some of the other boards, because our other board members, because we did not demonstrate diversity in professional settings or our society on our board. We are not all pediatric, school-based, early intervention-based clinicians by any stretch of the means. And what was scarier was it was also predominantly just from like one local area.
Mm.
And so we had to seek out volunteers from diverse professional backgrounds, diverse regions across our state. Because when you have, I mean, you know the area that you're from. I mean, I grew up in White Oak, Virginia, which is outside of Fredericksburg, right? It ain't much
Okay,
to it.
yeah.
Yeah, right. Yeah, you know exactly.
Yeah.
Hi. You got it, right? So, although they do have a stoplight where I'm from now, so like,
Oh my
huzzah!
gosh.
I'm not making it up. Okay, so this is, but that those pieces are. It's so scary that you know exactly what that is. Those pieces are important, but in my attempt to do right, I did wrong. I wrote a grant and submitted it to ASHA, and we didn't get it approved, but it was myself and another middle-aged white lady, and we wrote a grant to try to increase diversity and inclusion within our state association membership, volunteer pool, and on our board. And it was denied. And I got some really great feedback afterwards. And it was something that I would not have considered. And it would have been nice to have seen some diversity in those applying
Mm-hmm.
for the grant, right? To
Mm-hmm.
have a, a member of one of those communities as a stakeholder in the process. And that was profound feedback. I had never thought of that, right? I was just so gun ho on doing the right thing that I didn't see what I didn't see, right?
Yeah.
And but at the same time, it was a catch 22 because we were lacking in that area, right? And now I can proudly say that we're not. Um, but it took outreach to grow and change. And that was a consideration. So when you're going about diversity and inclusion initiatives, you may want to consider making sure that you have individuals from a multitude of different backgrounds on that committee, because it's their voices that need to be have an increase in volume, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm sitting here, I'm like, as no one can see me, I'm sitting here shaking my head like, yes, yes, yes. Yeah, that is, so that's something that that I think a lot of organizations and associations and boards struggle with. It's something that are so one thing within the staffing industry now is that people want diverse candidates and they want to know that you can give them diverse candidates for these job positions, and so it's a kind of they're kind of in a similar boat, just a different dynamic, I guess. But we when I was working at ASHA, it was different. For me, it was a little bit different. I worked on the governance team, and we were pushing throughout with all of our committee folks, like that we needed diversity, and diversity in ASHA is different than other places because, like you said, ASHA is predominantly women, white women, and so it was a lot of, so diversity for us was, and very heavy. The membership skews very heavy towards SLPs, and that's just the nature of the field. But we actually, for us, diversity was audiologists, men,
Yes,
minorities,
yes.
young people, and so that was a big push. I worked with the early career. What was the committee? Was the next gen, and an ad hoc committee, and that was the one big initiative we had, was trying to get early career professionals involved in a lot of this stuff, because it is an offering a diverse perspective, and if folks notice, the board is split down the middle with speech and audiology, purposefully split like that, so that we have equal representation on both sides. With boards and stuff, like I have seen this with other associations as well, and I'm a firm believer in that your board should somewhat mimic what your membership looks like. And I've worked places where it doesn't at all. It is mostly white men or and handpicked minorities sometimes, and it's obvious when that happens. And one thing that we've been trying to get across with our members is, that's great that you want to seek out diverse candidates. They're all out there, and it's not hard to find them, but you have to meet them where they are. And you also have to do it without checking a box. You don't want to say that, oh, well, I don't know if they're qualified, but they're Black. So here you go. there's your first candidate, And that's even something with, even with the current political climate, how different the cabinet is going to look, and how diverse it is. And you see comments from both sides that some people are like, oh, this is amazing. Look at all this diversity. Our cabinet is starting to look like America. And you have other people are saying they're a diversity hire, and not even acknowledging the fact that they actually, they're not a diversity hire. They actually have incredible qualifications for this position. They just happen to be diverse.
Okay, there is one cabinet position member, and this is, y'all put all politics aside, this one post I am incredibly proud of. My family is Irish. We are come here's, but I am also Native American. I'm Potawatomi and Cherokee. So a huge part of me is, but we were here first. Okay.
Yeah.
And so, but nobody sees that because you know what? I am super pasty white girl and I burn if the sun looks at me. Okay. So, and my poor kids do too. And so like we have more suntan lotion. It's January, February, and I'm going to put suntan lotion on my kids. But the cabinet for the Homeland Interior Department, I'm butchering it. She is from Native American background.
Oh, yes. Oh, I just goosebumps when you said that. I know who you're talking about. Yeah.
And that was validation for my soul that we matter, because those were my people that were forced across the country. Those were my people that were displaced. That's part of me too. And to have someone that has a voice to stand up for us. I have goosebumps and I'm crying again. That is so powerful because we count.
Yeah. Yeah.
And yeah. So, okay. This is why I got the box of tissues, Haley.
No, I get what you're saying though. That's how, honestly, that when Kamala Harris was being sworn in, I knew I was so happy on Wednesday, but when she was sworn in, oh my God, I burst into tears and I didn't expect to. I thought maybe a single tear might stream down my face, but oh no, I was boohooing in my living room and so happy. It was actually more when she was done. And because of just everything that symbolized, we had, I have a 9-year-old niece, and I'll share this because this just makes me laugh. So when, she just turned 9 a few months ago. So over the summer, we were talking about, the president and the upcoming election and stuff. And ultimately, once we knew that the candidates were going to be, she would talk about Kamala Harris, but I knew she wasn't going to make it past the primaries, but she didn't because she's 9. And when I said she talked about her again. I said, do you know who our vice president candidate is? And she said, Kamala Harris. And I was like, yeah. And honestly, I'll say, she was born during Obama's presidency. So she doesn't know what a big deal that was, because that's just all she knows. And she doesn't totally get what a big deal it is for Kamala Harris either. And my sister was talking to her on Wednesday night. She said, "Did you watch the inauguration?" She's like, "Yep." And she said, "Did you see Kamala Harris get sworn in?" She goes, "Yeah." She's like, "Isn't that so cool as a Black woman or Black and Asian American woman getting sworn in?" And she goes, "Yeah, I mean, Daddy said she looks like me, but we don't look anything alike." And I thought, God, the innocence of a child. Like she's a piece of work, but but I watched that and I think of her and just, how I know like right now she doesn't understand the significance of it, but when she's older and understands what a big deal it is, it's just like, this happened. This is possible for you too. It was just a really cool moment.
I asked the boys that night, we were tucking them in after bedtime prayers, and I said, and my husband's phenomenal, right? And I was like, all right, puppies, what would you say? What would you do if your wife said, "I want to be president"? Goose was like, "I'd say, all right, I'm in. How can I help?" And I was like, "Good job, Bubby." And then I was like, "Bear, what would you say?" And he proceeded to make a series of fart noises. And I was like, "Yes, we got work to do." But like, I mean, to be six, but like, it was just, okay. But okay, I used that because I mean, Bear and his fart noises, but whatever. That to me, I say I as if I'm solo parenting here, but like I have an amazing husband and he's an amazing daddy. We are responsible for raising white males. I have a responsibility. We have a responsibility for teaching diversity and inclusion now.
Mm-hmm.
And we have worked very, very, very hard for that. So, albeit Bear farted, I mean, for Goose to say, "How can I help? I'm in." That's awesome. Especially for a little white boy from the South. Let me just put that out there.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So give us some additional advice on where to begin. And then we got to circle back around to how can, and I asked this question, but know that when I ask this question, it makes me uncomfortable to even say it because I'm afraid I'm going to say the words wrong. How are ways that people can check in and have the conversation? As an SLP, you'd think we'd be excellent with conversation holding, but we're not. How can we check in with our Black and brown friends? And is it offensive to say Black and brown friends? Because that's my immediate follow-up question.
Well, so I'll go with that. I don't think it's offensive. I don't think it's offensive. I think people have different preferences, probably. Like I've been my whole life. I grew up in DC before it was gentrified, and I grew up but I've also gone to, with the exception of high school, predominantly white schools. And so I have a lot of white friends who I can tell when they're uncomfortable and say they don't know if they like waver between Black and African American. And I'm like, you can just call me Black. A lot of us, you can just say Black. We're fine. Like, it's not a bad word. I think sometimes people might say it in a negative way, depending on their tone of voice. But I personally don't find it offensive. But I think you have to kind of figure out folks' preference, and it's okay to say like which one, like do you prefer one over the other or something, or does it matter? But I'm sorry, what was the question before it? Oh, checking in.
Yeah, how do we right. check in and
it is okay. So if anyone watches the show This Is Us, there is a very powerful scene when it came back, and when the show resurfaced or whatnot, restarted the season. They picked up the storyline melded with what was going on in real life. So they picked up with George Floyd's murder, like that happened at the end of one of the episodes. And it was something that they kept talking about. And so for those who don't know, the story centers around three siblings, a set of twins, and their Black adopted brother who was born around the same day. It's a whole storyline I won't get into, but they're all
I've
the
literally
same
never
age.
seen the show,
Oh,
so
it's a
okay.
really, if you want a good cry, watch that show. It is a really good show. And
I watch Moana when I need a good cry because normally it's because I miss my grandma. So like, we're good.
but so there's a scene in it where the sister is she keeps asking the brother, the Black brother, I should say, is his. Sorry, I should say their names, Kate and Randall. But Kate keeps asking, she keeps trying to check in on Randall. Hey, just checking in, seeing how you're doing. And she thinks she's doing this awesome thing. Which it's great that she's checking in, but there's a really powerful scene when she's like, are you mad at me or something? Like, how come you haven't gotten back to me? I just want to make sure that you and your family are okay. And he says to her, I'm not going to quote it, but he basically says, this has been going on, like, we're 40 years old. This has been going on our entire lives. And only now are you asking me about it because it's in the news and you think it's the right thing to do. And I don't, and then, because what a lot of us do, and this is why that scene spoke to me too, is like, we don't bring it up because it makes people like non-Black people uncomfortable. And we're like, well, instead of making them uncomfortable, I'm just not going to talk about it. I have a lot of my friends are white and I don't talk about it with them because when all the rioting was going on, one of my friends, actually, her husband has a restaurant, and her restaurant was looted. I don't condone that by any means, but they were complaining about that, and which I get, but because they're innocent in what was going on, but not able to see the other side of it. So I was in this really awkward position where I'm like, well, I know why people are angry, and I don't agree with looting, and I know that there were agitators or whatever, but she and I ended up having a real conversation about it. And she's like, you never talked to us about this. I was like, I know, because you guys, you don't talk to me about it. You don't ask me anything. It's hard now because you won't, there are times, like I said to my sister, I laugh about this, but sometimes I say, sometimes I'm trying to figure out if people are really nice to me because they don't want me to think they're racist or because it's just how they are. And
I'm just laughing because that's awful. Yeah.
I know it's such a terrible thing, but it's like when we go for like walks and stuff, and some strangers like hello, and sometimes it just in the last 6 months you wonder a little bit. But there's just a genuine way of doing it. One thing I appreciated, people were checking in when all this stuff was going on, because it was hard. It was really hard. And we were all expected to just act like nothing was going on during work hours, which honestly is what led to calling out that we needed to do some internal D&I work. Because a lot of people weren't affected by it and didn't recognize that the rest of us were. But I just lost my train of thought. With checking in, like a lot of people checked in. And sometimes you can, if it's someone you haven't spoken to in 10 years, but they're like, it's all of a sudden they're like, hey, I'm just making sure you're okay. And it's like, that's really nice, but I think you're just doing this because you're probably going through your phone to find all the Black people to say, hey, are you all right? But they're just genuine ways of asking, and it's not waiting until something bad happens. One of my friends, when this first started, she and I talk every day, and she said, how are you doing? And I was like, I'm fine. And she goes, no, really, how are you? Have you been watching the news? And I said, oh, with that. And she's not someone who ever talked to me about it before, but the fact that, I don't know, it was just different. And it might have been because we do talk on a regular basis. My best friend, I call her, she is like one of the best allies I've ever met in my life. She's amazing. And she's got a 4-year-old who will ask if I'm okay, and who's Black Lives Matter, and learned something at school last week and she said, I think they learned about like matter for like as far as science goes, but then she says, we learned about matter, but like not like Black Lives Matter, like that's different. and
That is so innocent and sweet.
Yeah, I
Yes.
mean, she's amazing, and my friend Kat she's a teacher and just like brings her kid out to marches. As similar what you were talking about with your family earlier. Um, she's in a similar boat with hers. They're out in Minnesota, and um, she gets into to Facebook battles and with them because their views are just they're not the same, and it's sad, and it breaks my heart when I hear people like have to deal with that with their families because it's we don't have to. I mean, that's where I guess we have a leg up. we don't have to do that, um, but yeah, I mean, just checking and making sure that it's genuine and it's not like, hey, I saw the news. I just want just check in to see if you're okay, and then you don't hear from them ever again. To me, that's checking the box and be like, well, I did my due diligence. I'm done.
This is I have a very dear friend that her and I have talked numerous times throughout this, and her little girl is a little bit younger than our boys, and while we have had the conversations about this, we've also had conversations about how do we speak to our children about it. Um, Bear, bless him, Bear loves the ladies at kindergarten. And he's down to one girlfriend because he says ladies are just too much. But a couple years, he had six. Haley, he had six
Oh my
girlfriends.
goodness.
And he goes, this is my girlfriend for art class, and this is my girlfriend for recess. And I'm like, you're gonna have a lot of divorce attorney fees in your future.
I had no good divorce attorney. One of my good friends is one to send them up to Virginia when it's time.
Oh, God help me with that child. But when he was 4, no 3, he was telling me about his my one true love because he was in artic therapy and he could not do an L or an R to save his life, and it took me forever to understand what he was saying, and because I couldn't understand how he was saying the little girl's name because he was in artic therapy, right? And he would describe her, and he goes, I cannot even begin to describe his phonological patterns, but basically her hair made music. That was how he described her. And it took me forever to figure out she had braids with little beads at the end. And when she flipped her hair, the beads clinked and it made music. And he loved her. And so I called my, not just because her hair made music, but they also sat together on the bus for field trips. And she would share the blocks with him, and the other girls in the class did not know how to share blocks. So, sharing is key.
Yeah.
And so I called my girlfriend and we had the conversation. I was like, we as a white female, I went to the extreme of not wanting to use color adjectives to describe people because I was so afraid of causing offense. And my girlfriend was like, Michelle, it's okay to say the cute little black girl with braids. And I was like, but are you sure? And she goes, woman, listen to me. And I was like, yes, ma'am. But I was so afraid to teach my children those adjectives. And I know this is about professional diversity and inclusion, but that also trickles over into home. And that was yes. Also, he does not go to that school anymore, and I always wonder, if he will ever come across his one true love ever again. She was so stinking cute, and I also really, really liked her mom. She was really cool. She was an artist. I like artists. I think that's fabulous. Okay, all right. So to steer us back to program development, we've talked about it. We've talked about getting stakeholders from members of those communities on it to take time, to take patience. You mentioned the importance of writing a incredibly strong mission statement, and then here's what I want to know. What happens when you get pushback? What happens if you're going through development of a diversity and inclusion program and you get pushback from folks that what do what do we do then?
Yeah, that's hard. And I say that as someone who recently went through that. And it's hard. And it's you have to you have to go not to go in with like a negative mindset by any means, but one thing I wish that I had done differently was to go in with at least some kind of like acknowledging that this might not be accepted. I think we had the timing of everything on our side because of because I mean it was all over the news. It's not something that can be ignored. But when we were tying in like the problems of the world to the problems of our little workplace world, that was. I don't. It's sometimes it's met with pushback from people who don't see it, and which is unfortunate. But it's also like, okay, but some of you are in offices, so you wouldn't see this because it's going on where the rest of us sit in cubicles, where it's out in the open. We it This sounds so cliche, but it's like that. I think it's a Churchill quote, but it's like when you're going through hell, just keep going. Um, that's what we honestly had to do. I think I took the brunt of it because I ended up being kind of the spokesperson for this group, partially because of my outspokenness before it was created, but also I think just because I'm one of the older people who are in this group of folks who were trying to instill this change. So it got frustrating, and to top it off, like doing the external D&I stuff. I was just talking about this the other day. It was like there were times where I was having 4 to 5 meetings a day about racism, and it was, and not like racism in the office, just, well, part of it, but like just racism in general, and in the industry, in the community, in the workplace, like, and what to do about it. And um, it's exhausting. And so, you want to keep pushing, but at the same time, you need to give yourself, a breather every now and then, because one thing that happened with me is that I got really burned out, emotionally burned out. And I work for a really awesome team where I had other stuff going on, personal things going on. We had a lot of death in my family over the summer. Nothing to do with COVID, it just happened. And we my boss one day, I was just a mess. And she said, pick a day this week and take the day off and do something for yourself, but don't turn your computer on. Like, I don't want to hear from you that day. Just
That's
take a day
love.
for yourself. And yeah, and she and I had a conversation yesterday about all of us being better about self-care. But with this, I mean, it was hard. My sister works in a position where she has to deal with a lot of other people's trauma. To hear it, and because of confidentiality, she can't unpack that on anyone else. And so with this, she and I talk all the time about how we have similar but different jobs. And so it's like she tells me all the time, like, yeah, they call them respite days where she works, and they take a day. I guess it would be like a comp day anywhere else, but it's supposed to be their day of rest, basically. So just making sure that you make time for that, because it's hard. It's really hard, and you have to keep going. And sometimes, as with any time you're getting pushback on something, sometimes you need to go back and regroup and maybe reframe your approach and present it again. But I will say, when it comes to this kind of thing, it's there's this meme that's like, we can disagree about pizza toppings, we can't disagree about racism. But it's frustrating, I will say that. But yeah, I feel like that's, I don't know, this time around, I will say it felt different with everything that happened in March, May, and June. So I pray that it is. I really do.
I honestly think it's different because we are still in the great pause.
Mm-hmm.
And folks have time to reassess where they sit, where they stand, and how they can move and choose to move. Because yes, it's still a rat race out there, but it's not the pace that it was. We are
Right.
still not running pre-COVID rat race levels, right? And also, I truly see our younger generations, and I'm on the edge of the younger generation.
Same.
Yeah, I'm what was it? Gen X, Gen Y. I think I'm like in between the two.
Yeah, we're the Zennials.
Yes, millennials. That's the thing. My Goose got a book series on the Oregon Trail, and it's choose your own adventure books based off of the game. And I was trying to describe to him a world in which there was one computer for the entire classroom, and it was a station that you got to go to once a week. And Oregon Trail was the coolest game on it. And he looked at me, and I was like, "Oh my god!" I just told him I walked a mile to school one way in the cold.
I do that all the time. DC public schools close at the drop of a hat now. And back when we were in school, I'm like, I remember walking home from school 2 miles in 2 feet of snow.
Yes,
The bus
exactly.
didn't work.
Oh my god. Oh my god, I lost my point, Haley. That's so funny. Yes, we're so old. But microcosms. But with with this generational change, we're not afraid to ask the question.
Mm-hmm.
So for those of us out there, and I'm not discrediting those that are older than me, but diversity and inclusion treatment. Oh my gosh, it kind of is a treatment. This conversation is, I see, being led by peers and colleagues our age and younger.
Yeah.
And we have to have the conversation about ageism, because older generations tend to think that younger generations, or they don't tend to, but they have the possibility to think that younger generations don't bring stuff to the table, but they do. And I am excited to see where we go as a profession to see process improvement, because this impacts how we treat our patients, how we work with our colleagues, how we engage interprofessionally with other allied health members, other health team members. And don't be afraid. Y'all, if you're listening, don't be afraid to have that conversation. Reach out, ask the question, and not just checking the box, but ask the real question, and then take the step forward, because we have to do better. Period. End of story. Oh, Haley, I adore you. Thank you.
Thank you. First of all, can I just say, I haven't had the opportunity to like sit and chat with you for such a long time, and I know that we're talking about a heavy topic, but it's just so good to talk to you again. And I miss you. I think I still have that picture, but the last time I saw you was probably like the 2018 convention, I think.
Yes. Oh my God, I ate so much food I could barely zip my jeans at that convention. I have missed you. You should just come back. We're in DC. We're coming. Ash is coming to DC this
November, right?
November. Oh my gosh. Okay,
if you come up here, call me.
I will. I'm probably going to stay with my kid brother and my future sister-in-law. And if they are not engaged by then, I swear on my life, little brother, you and I are going to have a conversation. So, anywho, he's kind of making an honest woman out of her. But also, we would probably trade him in for her. So, just kidding.
Oh, no.
Okay. All right. Haley, hold on one second, sweet friend. I have to switch us over to questions really quick, okay?
Okay.
Feeding Matters guides system-wide changes by uniting caregivers, professionals, and community partners under the Pediatric Feeding Disorder Alliance. So what is this alliance? The Alliance is an open access collaborative community focused on achieving strategic goals within 3 focus areas: education, advocacy, and research. So who is the Alliance? It's you. The Alliance is open to any person passionate about improving care for children with a pediatric feeding disorder. To date, 187 professionals, caregivers, and partners have joined the Alliance. You can join today by visiting the Feeding Matters website at www.feedingmatters.org. Click on PFD Alliance tab and sign up today. Change is possible when we work together. That's a wrap, folks. Once again, thank you for listening to First Bite, fed, fun, and functional. I'm your humble but yet sassy host, Michelle Dawson, the All Things Peds SLP. This podcast is part of a course offered for continuing education through speechtherapypd.com. Please check out the website if you'd like to learn more about CEU opportunities for this episode, as well as the ones that are archived. And as always, remember, feed your mind, feed your soul, be kind, and feed those babies.